Hey everybody, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Bill.
Have you ever asked yourself, what is your superpower?
Everyone has a superpower. Most people just don't know what it is.
We're going to help you uncover.
This podcast is all about helping people figure out what their truly unique superpower is.
Superpowers, what's yours? Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superpowers. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. We're here with our new guest, Josh McFarland. Welcome, Josh, to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Here we are. So let's start with, Josh, we were just talking about last night. Anything you want to kind of talk about, looking maybe a little bit tired about visiting New York City from San Francisco, or just kind of dive into the show? It's up to you.
This city, man. I don't know how anybody gets anything done.
Yeah.
I went out to Please Don't Tell.
Oh,
you know this?
of course.
The speakeasy and the hot dog joint.
Sure.
So cool.
So good.
Ended with caviar and tater tots. That's a New York night.
Yeah.
That's a perfect night.
That's a great night.
Well,
By the way, this entire podcast is now going to be called Caviar and Tater,
Tots. Welcome back. So Josh is here. We're lucky that he's in town visiting from San Francisco. We've been friends for a couple of years. We're going to dive right into the question that Bill and I like to ask, and the only one that we've actually thought about, which is fairly intelligent, which is we want to know your story, man. So let's start with where are you from, where are you born, anything about your family. Just take us through your journey, and we'll go from there.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, let's go way back. So I was born and raised in a small town in Wyoming. My parents were entrepreneurs of a sort. They owned a carpet store in our town until I was about age 12. And then my dad went to work at the coal mines, which is like the big industry in our area.
Wow.
I also worked in the coal mines for a bit. It was my summer job, driving one of those big trucks.
Safety first? How does that work as a young kid going in a coal mine? What do you do?
Yeah, you get like what's called MSHA certified, Mining Safety and Health Association.
Unbelievable.
You get 1 day's worth of training, and then the next day you're driving a truck as large as a 3-story house.
By the way, this story is about from coal to caviar.
Oh,
From coal to caviar.
wow! And you had a late night, and you're on fire already.
Yeah. Well, I was karaokeing, so like the microphone is just talking to me.
What did you sing last night, by the way? You want to do that later?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. Sorry, Josh.
Wyoming, great place to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
We lived outside of town, 10 acres, 6 horses. It was very kind of rural life. And then I got into Stanford as a freshman. So I had a grandfather who encouraged me to just do as well as I could in high school and, be involved in activities. And his one piece of advice was, make sure you go to a good college and you'll be set. Like that's the cornerstone of your life. And so
did he mention that you had to get into it, which clearly you did? Or was it just like, this Stanford, jump in there?
Yeah.
So did you get into Stanford on your grades, on an extracurricular, on something that you did that was unique?
I'm pretty sure I was just part of the Wyoming quota that year.
You were the one guy from Wyoming?
One. Yeah.
I was thinking about moving to Idaho so my kids can get into good schools.
I mean, you increase the probability if you do that.
Yeah.
It's totally true. Yeah. I think it was a combination of things and also just good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Like I definitely believe that luck played a role. And I remember when I was applying to schools, I didn't know what it meant to go to a good college. So I had a copy of U.S. News and World Report, Guide to the Best Colleges. And I was looking down the list, and it was Harvard, Yale, and places I'd heard of. And then I saw Stanford. And I actually thought it was in Connecticut.
Stanford, that's actually a couple miles from my house and one of four Bills.
Yeah.
And I saw a picture of Palm Drive in the magazine. I was like, oh, that looks nice. I'll go there. And so actually Stanford was the only school I applied to.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing.
You know what? It's incredible how we've been doing a couple of these shows, like the naivety of so many successful people. I feel like being naive or almost like, like unworldly, if you will. Like just, you're sitting in Wyoming and you think the world is this big.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people came from humble beginnings.
It's true. What is it about people? So our view. This is a huge audience that watches this show, and I think we have I don't know, at least 10-15% of the one.
Then us,
and I think Simmons, we just surpassed Simmons. So what should people know? I feel like this is a great plug an opportunity to talk about people in Wyoming. Like what I feel like this is a blue collar place, hardworking, the morals, characters. Like let's just go back one step. What should we know about people of Wyoming? What are they like?
Yeah, it was really interesting watching the last election. So Wyoming is the most red of the red states. Like if you looked at 538 and just like the entire scale, like Wyoming was 1,000% going to vote Trump, and it did. And being from that background, but now living in San Francisco, I have this really like two sides of the coin understanding of what the country's going through. And particularly in my part of Wyoming, because so many of the jobs are energy related. It's either coal or gas or oil. As those industries fall from previous heights, it makes people really, really nervous about their financial surety. And anything that you do that threatens that and threatens the livelihood of their kids, they're going to fight against that, right? And I think they also believe that the system is largely stacked against them. And the way that manifests is in believing whoever is going to tell them the most, what's what I'm looking for? Whoever's going to tell them the most believable story that the future continues to look better than the past. So it's when that equation flips and somebody thinks the future looks less rosy than the past or the present, that people get super uncomfortable and they start to do things that are even against their best interests because they don't know what else to do.
I mean, I feel like I could talk for an hour on this topic alone. How do you? So number one, is your family still in Wyoming?
So they moved to a similar small town, but in New Mexico.
Okay. And how do you feel about? So you're much like me. I feel like there is such a divide in the country. And I actually feel like I'm on both sides of the divide.
Yeah.
Right. My current life and being in technology, being in New York, I can understand, the far left. But my upbringing is all far right. So, how do you reconcile this? And
yeah, for me, it's I come back to what's the world that I want my kids to grow up in, right? So I'm very appreciative of the world that I grew up in. Like I think it is a large part of how I got to where I am and who I am. But I want my kids to have a different upbringing, and I want the world that they live in to look different than the one that I lived in, even though I still respect the one that I lived in.
Great way to say it. Perfect. All right, so you're Stanford.
Yeah, now you're Stanford.
Yeah. So actually, I get into Stanford. And turns out I forgot to apply for financial aid. Again, naivete.
Yeah.
Then I run the math, and I'm like, oh, I can't afford this. So I turned Stanford down, and I went to the University of Wyoming.
Wow.
And I saved money.
Did you not have a conversation with those in the whatever that committee is called to say, hey, I'm qualified. I want to be here. I got accepted. Can you help me navigate this financial challenge?
I did a first pass at that, but I didn't know that was even something that you could negotiate.
Right.
I had no idea. And so,
by the way, Stanford's the one university now where nobody graduates with student debt. Their endowment fund is so large; it's needs based. Whatever you need, you get.
You got it.
And if you can afford it, you pay for it.
Right.
Yes. That's exactly right.
So you're also a little too old.
Yeah.
Because you would have gotten in and not paid.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think at the time Stanford had a similar policy, but it was if your parents combined made more than something like $80,000, then you weren't eligible back then for free tuition. And my parents had made like 82 combined or something in the previous year.
Damn.
Because my dad worked a lot of overtime in the coal mine.
Right.
Kind of like
right on the line.
But I went to University of Wyoming on a full ride and worked during the year and saved up a bunch of money. Reapplied to Stanford, got in as transfer, and so same degree, half the price.
Wow. So you rolled up your sleeves like you did back in the coal mine and plugged yourself back in there. You didn't have any help from the outside. You did this on your own. And you also knew you wanted to go there.
Yes. And I also I had a great support system, like supportive parents, even though they couldn't support it financially. I actually, when I got to Stanford and I stepped on the campus for the first time as a transfer, it was the first time I had ever been there.
Wow.
Everything else I had just seen.
Just
from
the pictures.
Yeah.
Just the pictures of that beautiful entryway.
Yeah.
So without going into detail, just roll off like kind of bullet points. What are the jobs you had since Stanford? What have you done since Stanford? Don't go into detail. Just say, I did this, 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 this.
And can I ask you one question before you do that?
Yeah.
Did you ever ride a bull when you were in Wyoming? Because I feel like that can't get out of my head. Like, did you ride a bull?
Sure. Yeah, it's called childhood.
And you like fell off the bull? Did the bull chase you? Or the clowns running around? I think the creepiest thing about that moment are the clowns.
The clowns
like
are very
the
creepy.
bull's scary with the horns, but the clowns.
Although I love watching the videos where the guy isn't paying attention and the bull just lifts him up.
Yeah, and everyone's always supporting the bull.
Yeah, you have to. Totally. All right, so since Stanford, startup called Zaplet,
Yep.
Google, started my own company called TellApart.
Yep.
It was bought by Twitter, and now I'm at Greylock.
All right. I'm no longer qualified to be the interviewer here.
This is why I don't tell Bill anything. Just to surprise him like that.
Unbelievable.
First startup. Let's get into those are the best.
This
right?
is like incredible.
What is this first? What's the first company? I actually don't know it.
So it was called Zaplet. It was a Kleiner Perkins funded company. So Vinod Khosla had funded this. Super interesting idea and sort of a seedling of technology that was about making emails live and interactive. And so today, like this email is a static thing, right?
Yeah.
If you need to edit it, you send another email. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to calendar something, it's just emails upon emails. And we had this idea that all the content could be pulled fresh from the server when the email was opened.
Got it.
So they were called Zaplets, the emails themselves. And we started as a consumer-facing company. It was about polling and discussions and scheduling and calendaring. And this was in 99 when I joined. And then we raised $103 million, which is a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of money today.
Well, it turns out.
Wow. Okay.
And then the bubble burst.
Yep.
Right? Luckily, we still had all this money in the bank. But we realized that we were so far away from product market fit that we ended up pivoting the company into enterprise software, enterprise collaboration software.
Yep.
Laying off.
Is that like it becomes like a Google
70%?
Docs then?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is back in 99, 2000. So imagine everything that we have today, but predating that back in, the old.
By the way, every good idea failed in like the late 90s and turn of the century.
That's true.
Right?
A lot of them did.
Yeah.
Or the companies that are just crushing it, all the unicorns, just made it better.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Did you have an experience regarding email that made you sort of think like, hey, we can actually, this can be more collaborative, more informative? Like what was sort of the turning point of this idea?
So the idea itself, so I just joined as an early product manager, but the idea itself came out of an incubator that was called Reactivity. And so some of my smartest friends from Stanford all worked for this thing called Reactivity. And they would just sit around and like try and think of good ideas. And then they would create companies, spin them out with funding, and then they would go and get institutional funding after that.
Yep. Okay.
And so one of my friends was the very first engineer, like the founding engineer. And he pitched me on this idea. I was like, that sounds brilliant. Like, let's do that. And it was also, there was so much hubris at the time, right? It was again, 99, 2000, you just thought that you could manifest success, right?
And Josh, you mentioned, obviously we're going to get to Twitter, and I know your DNA is very much product driven, but you did mention 99, 2000, you took a product role. Like, was that a common role at that time in tech? Like, did you know at that stage you had sort of, we're not going to get super deep.
Well, and what did you major in Stanford?
So economics.
Yep.
And at Wyoming, I was computer science, and then at Stanford, I was economics, mostly just because that was the degree I could finish and the amount of money I had left.
Yep.
And I took a lot of computer science there too.
You had to take your economics classes to figure out how much money you had.
Right, exactly.
But you also, it sounds like once you got to school, you became smarter because remember you didn't know that you had to pay for school and these other things. So something happened after
correct.
Wyoming and bull riding and Stanford. You actually got smart.
Yep.
I mean,
that's what
the first
Stanford does to
observation.
people.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very clear. Good job, guys.
I mean, it's funny. Like, I got my ass handed to me at Stanford. Like, it was so much harder than any other schooling I'd ever done.
Yeah.
And there is something about being in an environment like that, or even in Silicon Valley or New York, that really forces you to sharpen yourself.
Right.
And you just learn every single day things that you'd never have the exposure to had you not been in that environment.
And you're surrounded, I think like anything, even our collective circles of friends, we're all very lucky. It depending on who you surround yourself with, it picks up your game.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Whether it's people or whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, especially people who are competitive.
Correct.
Right. If you're competitive and you're feeling a bit mediocre, or God forbid, slightly under average,
right?
Our competitive juices just flow in, and it's like I have to be successful.
Yeah. And there's this book, Mindset, by Carol Dweck.
Sure.
She's actually on the faculty at Stanford, and she just talks about this growth mindset that like you can actually train yourself into believing that you pretty much can do anything, and it's just about it's about getting away from this idea that some talents are innate and really just focusing on the fact that like everything is possible as long as you have the right growth oriented mindset. And I think me transitioning from Wyoming to Stanford was really difficult, but I came into it assuming that I could do it if I just worked hard enough.
Up here.
By the way, that philosophy is almost like a self-dealing philosophy.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's what divides the country today is like there are people who genuinely feel it's my right to be successful,
or will believe in push.
or it's my I was born into this coal family and
right.
and we got to stay alive on coal.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's incredible.
Right.
Yeah. So where are we timing wise in regards to your next company?
Yeah, so the startup itself went through some really tough times, and this is about the time we figured out we didn't have product market fit. We still had money in the bank, but we ended up laying off over 2/3 of the company.
Sure.
And so it's funny. I started as I think the first product manager, and I ended as the product manager.
The last product manager.
Yeah, last person standing. And I think that was just because I worked really hard and I did good work, and I was like very cheap compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
And it was actually a great experience because now I'm essentially in charge of product at this company that is actually like pretty well known and has a big profile.
Somewhat by chance and by luck, it's like the Bledsoe, Tom Brady. We won't get into Patriots Nation and my love for the team, but you had your opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. Like
guys
go down, layoffs, unfortunate situations, personal. I'm not saying that's pretty, but you got your shot.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, people are just like, give me my shot.
Yeah, that's right. And then the other stroke of luck is that one of the co-founders of the company had left and went to Google, and he was working in the product team there, and he called me up and he's like, hey, like this company is doing way better than anybody from the outside knows. Like you should interview
So
here.
this is what, 2001?
This was now 2003.
2003.
Yeah.
Because I remember getting a call for the head of sales at Google. And I go, what is there to sell?
Right.
Right. It's, and that's when like snowball.com went out of business and the entire company just went to Google. Right.
I got to share the story because it's crazy that you just mentioned Snowball. So when I moved to New York, the whole space was sort of booming. Recruiters were trying to put me in different companies. I'll do this very quickly because this is about Josh. I had two opportunities, Snowball and a company called Music Vision. I went with Music Vision because there were record labels in the lobby and it seemed kind of cooler to be around music and there were cute girls that worked there. Tim Armstrong at the time was at Snowball.
Yep.
That company crashed and burned.
Yep.
And Tim came back to me when I was at Music Vision. I was in my early 20s, so of course I thought I knew it all. And he was like, hey, we really liked you. And yeah, that Snowball thing didn't work out. And of course, in the back of my head, I'm like, I told you so. So I'm like, sure, I'll meet you again. David Hirsch was there. And he's like, now we're with this other company. And I'm like, let's hear it. Let's hear this other Snowball. He's like, well, what we're doing is we're aggregating all the world's information. And of course, I'm like, why would anybody want that? Why would anyone do that? So we also have a Snowball missed opportunity. And Tim, I'm sorry. Actually,
By the way, we all should go back in time and work at Snowball.
Yeah.
Because everyone was very successful at Google after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Anyway,
so you have this inside track for Google.
Well, yes and no. I mean, Google, like Stanford, like everywhere, is like freaking tough to get into.
Yeah.
Actually,
back then, even more so.
Yeah, 2002.
That's when you had to put the
right in the midst of all these layoffs that were happening, I was like, I got to go find another job.
Yep.
And so I interviewed at Google. I interviewed 17 times.
Yep.
I had 17 interviews.
And by the way, every single one of them has to say yes.
Yes. And it was so brutal.
So
and
how
the
many-
last
so how many
interview was with Larry.
How many ping pong balls in the aquarium? Like, did you finally get that
In
answer?
the 747.
Right.
Yeah. They've given up on those
Yeah.
questions. But they were tough interviews, and I get all the way through. And then at the end, they're like, we decided we don't want to hire product managers that don't have a CS degree. And I'm like, well, but like you knew I had an econ. Like that was true the whole time. And they're like, yeah, this is a new thing. So
did you bring up Wyoming? That computer science at Wyoming?
Right?
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
They
but it
didn't
wasn't a
care.
degree. It wasn't a degree.
Actually, if you brought up that you actually, spent 2 years at University of Wyoming, that probably would have blackballed you back then.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
elite
Yeah.
back then.
Yep.
Yeah. But I did, I got my sheepskin from Stanford, and I was with distinction. I don't know, a 3.85 GPA. So like I was in the running. But I got turned down, and then 1 full year later, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this again. And so I took out an ad on my name. So you're like the early Adwords. It had just launched.
Yep.
And I took out an ad on my name because I knew the interviewers would be Googling me. And the ad said, top 10 reasons to reconsider Josh McFarland.
Amazing. No, you did
and
not.
then you clicked through, and it was a mocked up page of Google search results where instead of the search results, it was like each of the 10 reasons where I was just like laying it out.
That's so good.
And then at the top, you know how Google does the doodles where
Yes,
they
sure.
change the logo?
Yes.
I had this picture of me sitting on my mountain bike kind of sideways, and the O's of the bike were the Google
Of course they were.
Google O's.
Fucking
And,
mind blown right there. That's the best. That's the best
I haven't
interview
heard that
tactic
ever.
Ever.
You just gamed their system.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
How can they not hire you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 13 more interviews.
Yep.
And I finally got the job.
Wow.
And so I started Google in July of 2003. And what a magical time to be at that company.
Of course.
It was probably about 900 people. And because I was on the advertising side, I worked with Tim, I worked with Omid, I worked with Cheryl. I was able to form these just foundational relationships with these people who've gone to just kick so much
incredible
butt.
things. Yeah. Because you guys were in the trenches together.
Yeah. In fact, 2 weeks after I started, Jonathan Rosenberg, who's the SVP, who just came out with a book with Eric Schmidt, he stops by my desk and he's like, hey, I signed you up for a project. I was like, what's that? He says, you're going to be Omid's speechwriter for the National Sales Conference. I'm like, wow. I'm just a product guy.
Yeah, what do you want me to do with this?
Yeah. He's like, don't worry. I enlisted some help. I was like, who's that? He said, Cheryl. So it was Cheryl and Omid and I wrote his speech for the National Sales Conference.
How did that go? Any fun sort of, I don't know, bickering, sharing of ideas? Like how did that collaborative?
Oh, it was it was awesome. So at some point, like Cheryl and Omid are like just going at it, over differences and like, how this thing should be laid out. And Cheryl turns to me and she says, hey, don't want to freak you out. Like this is totally good. Like everything's good between us.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember I quoted her this line from the Bible where I say, as steel sharpens steel, so one man sharpens another. And she's just like, who is this kid?
Did that make it into the speech?
No.
It should.
No, it should have.
By the way, so you're sitting there with Omid and Sheryl Sandberg. At any point, did you say this woman's going to be one of the most powerful women, on the planet? Or did you see greatness in her? Was it that evident?
Yeah, I mean, she is just a machine.
Yeah.
And driven and smart, and is good at getting people to rally with her.
Yeah.
And it was clear, even if you look at the stories of how she got into Google and she was working. Where was she? The Treasury before
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
right.
That's right.
And so
She didn't have to mock up a Google page.
No, they were just like,
by
come
her
on.
name.
Yeah, no, they
no,
found her.
she didn't. But yeah, I mean, there's just always been a sense.
right.
How there's some people that you meet and you're just like, wow.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So, we have limited time here. So, at some point, so you now have the dream job, but at some point you leave that dream job to start your own company.
Yes.
Which is probably scarier than not applying to financial aid for Stanford. I mean, that's particularly because it doesn't matter what your role was. You start at Google 2003. You're doing, the stock is doing well.
Yeah.
Your career is doing well.
Yeah.
What the hell were you thinking to quit this dream job?
Yeah.
By the way, and your parents probably disowned you.
Yeah.
You're like, what are you doing?
My parents have given up on trying to make sense of me a long time ago. But yeah, here's what happened. So 2003, 900 people. You want to be successful at Google, you just kick butt, right? And you just do a great job of launching products and making them successful, and your team's success will speak for itself.
Yep.
2008 Google, when I left, was 25,000 people, totally different ball game, right? And I looked around and I'm like, I don't understand this game anymore.
Right.
It's about maintaining visibility. It's about commanding resources. It's about being a squeaky wheel. It's about playing politics. It's about
internal bullshit.
Well, it's also about because I'm kind of not good at anything. I love going like a mile wide and a couple inches deep. But 25,000 employees, you're like an inch wide and miles deep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't understand how to play that game. And so I thought, okay, I can learn these rules, right? Growth mindset. Like I can learn how big company politics work. Like,
of course.
I can climb that corporate ladder.
Sure, but that wasn't your motivation.
I was like, you know what? I don't want to learn that. I like being good at what I'm good at. And so that coupled with the fact that I had always wanted to start a startup, I'd been bitten by that bug early when I got to Stanford. So one of my former tech leads and I just teamed up together and we said, you know what, like we have enough ideas that something is going to materialize. And so we quit our jobs hilariously 2 weeks before Lehman Brothers blew up.
Oh, wow.
Right. So not only are we leaving this awesome big company, but we're leaving during just like and
raising money is going to be not easy.
But what's interesting about that departure is I generally feel when a startup is created, you just have sort of this like, I'm going to run through the burning building. Like nothing can stop you. You have that idea. It happens maybe once in your lifetime or a couple of times if you're lucky. And then you just kind of look back. In this scenario,
and by the way, being naive is probably a blessing.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
But in this scenario, it sounds like what you were not naive about, but you were wise about, is you had that sort of that other partner, that potential co-founder or whatnot that had another superpower that you didn't have. But if I'm hearing you correctly, you left without the idea. You left with a whiteboard of ideas.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Which is, I think, somewhat interesting and surprising.
Yeah.
That's suicide for most people.
Yeah,
and leaving without an idea.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is we had probably 4 or 5 that we were pretty excited about, and we knew that there was enough there that one of these was going to pop for us. And
what was the worst one? What was the one?
I was going to say, what is the idea that maybe you regret?
Yeah. So Josh, we need. I think if you could just not listen, we need to find a blemish. We need to find a hole.
By the way,
we gotta find. There's got to be something.
There's got to be something.
Okay, just
got to be a dark side.
Make up a shitty company right now. Okay, just tell us something.
The worst
idea. If you remember it.
The worst idea. Well, I'll tell you the one that we didn't pursue. It's kind of nerdy, but it was called Cloud Scrape. And we
it's already great.
It's already great. Yeah. I think we found the blemish.
Yeah, this could be it. No, it was going to be this massive screen scraping infrastructure in the cloud. Kind of like how Plaid started. Do you know?
I remember Plaid, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was, although the deeper we looked into it, the more that we realized we were going to have to be based in a country with no extradition treaty with the U.S. because we were definitely going to get our pants suit off. And then we looked into the British Virgin Islands, and we're like, well, that could actually be nice, but
and shady. Okay.
And shady.
So what ended you up with? What company did you end up with? What was the idea?
Okay, so
TellApart.
TellApart is the name of the company, and you'll remember what we did by way of the etymology of the name. So we helped big e-commerce, just commerce companies, period, tell apart their high-value customers from the rest with this machine learning, artificial intelligence infrastructure that would take in all of their sales data, everything that was happening on the website, on their apps, in store, merge it all together, and then make predictions about who was going to be the most valuable customer and what they were going to buy next.
Great.
And then that manifested in these like extremely personalized and tailored ads that you would see all over in banner ads. You'd see them in email. You'd see them on all your social channels. And we bolted onto that a performance-based business model. So we told these retailers who our customers were everybody from Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, Williams-Sonoma, Nordstrom, Wayfair.
Yep.
We told them, look, we're gonna build and run this software, ingest all of your data, build these profiles, and we're gonna be out there placing these ads, buying these ads, and you don't pay if it doesn't work.
What's interesting is it not maybe full stack, but you could have almost stopped with just sort of this like incredible optimization of understanding who your clients are, which most companies don't know how to do. Like just knowing where the whales are.
Yeah.
Like most people probably throw darts or like look at Salesforce, but you actually went one step further,
and
which was, hey, let's actually help you market against or advertise against.
Yeah, and the reason we did that is because, and this is some of the hubris of like 2X Google employees. We're just like, look, we're way smarter than the average person working in one of these big old school retail companies. If we just give them this data, like they won't do enough with it. Like it'll be interesting, but we need to go all the way, and we need to put our skin in the game. I mean, we were buying millions of dollars worth of ads per month.
And taking the risk yourselves.
Yes.
I mean, the amazing part also is in economic downturns or recessions, there's two types of marketing that get through: direct response oriented, and high blue chip branding. Right, because P&G and Unilever spend through recessions to win market share.
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't know if you guys thought through that, but that's genius, right? Is basically going back to retailers and e-tailers and saying, hey, our stuff is so good, don't pay us anything. Just pay us on a direct response basis.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, I remember TellApart was kind of like Criteo before Criteo in my mind. Like it was you saw the ads everywhere, or Outbrain.
It's crazy. I hate to admit, I thought it was a dating service. I just got reminded.
So you built. So two of you build the business. How many employees did you get to?
We were not that big, actually. We were about 110 people at the time that Twitter acquired us, but we were doing 170 million in revenue.
Top line, incredible.
Is that media revenue or tech revenue? Like, is that net revenue or is that
that was
gross?
That was revenue to us, right? So our customers paid us on this performance basis, and then when you netted everything out, we were actually an extremely profitable company. We had probably $42 million of EBITDA that last year.
Great business.
Yeah,
great business.
So you and a co-founder.
But that's the most profitable business Twitter has ever had.
Oh, is it true? Yeah.
So how does Twitter come out and buy you?
Right.
Like how'd that happen?
And did you want to get bought? Were you looking? Was it just sort of organic?
Oh, and how much money did you raise?
We raised a little less than 18 million. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
I remember I had this board meeting in January of 2014, and I come into the boardroom and I sit down and I say, "Okay, team, here's the deal. This year, we're going to double our office space. We're going to triple the size of the team. We're going to give everybody a raise. We're going to buy companies for all cash. We're going to throw some killer events. And I want you to just remember one thing. Every time I bring you one of these proposals, it's 40% off." And the board's like looking at me like, what are you talking about, 40% off? I'm like, well, turns out we're out of net operating losses, right, this accounting thing, and we have to start paying taxes this year. So every dollar we don't spend, 40 cents of that is
to reinvest it.
Going to go,
that's so wild.
In the form of taxes. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Anyway,
those are really good problems to have.
Yeah.
When you're starting to write, now it's only 20 cents on the dollar, but when you start writing checks to the government, that's when you know you made it.
Oh yeah.
And startup land.
Big checks.
Yeah.
Big checks. Yeah. So we used to do these sort of friends and family events that really sort of masqueraded as recruiting events for us, but also just a chance to like celebrate. And they were called TellAparties.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And
Clever.
Everyone would have
I see what you did there.
like that. Yeah. So the second to the last one we threw was over the holidays, and we brought in this team from Hollywood that basically fed ice blocks through this kind of modified wood chipper and created a 2-story real snow sledding hill in
Photos,
Northern
please.
California.
Cue the video right there.
Yeah,
For
100%
sure.
we are
What,
getting
Josh, your background is clearly product. We're about to jump into Twitter. You know, a lot of companies struggle with identifying product market fit or jamming it or getting it wrong, and whether they have a boatload of money in the right team, it comes down to execution. Anything you can talk about in regards to your DNA as a product person and TellApart, and maybe just do you feel like you sort of accelerated that process, or was it just sort of a combination of you and your co-founder and this sort of really good idea that you executed? Trying to understand like your product background and sort of the DNA and the outcome of you guys actually driving as much success as you did.
Yeah. So the role of product manager means different things in different companies.
Yep.
And at Google, the product manager and the engineer are like this dynamic duo, right? And they're responsible for everything that goes into getting this thing live and making it performant. And the skills that you learn from that are just, they're across the board. Like you're dealing with legal, then you're dealing with customer service, then you're dealing with, all the way down into how the money's going to be accounted for. So there's a lot of skills that you pick up along the way, and you become this jack of all trades, but master of one at the same time.
Right.
And that one that you're really, really good at, that I think the best product managers are great at as they iterate towards product market fit,
Right.
Is prioritization. It's just like ruthlessly cutting out the crap and just saying, what do we have here? What's working? How do we do more of that? How do we find the close cousin to that so we can expand? And I used to,
Do you have a philosophy or a process you go through on figuring out prioritization?
It's different depending on the stage of the product, but I feel like once you have something that's working, you get pulled in a bunch of different directions. Some of those directions are coming from the team. Hey, we could do this, we could do that. Some of those are coming from your customers. Hey, we need this, we need that. And what I always told the team is, as we were creating the product roadmap, you have to do the right things in the right order in order to be as successful as you can. So if you do the wrong things, go out of business. But if you do the right things in the wrong order, you're going to be successful, but not as
successful as you could.
Or if you get that client who wants to pay you for something that's slightly off the roadmap, and and by the way, every startup deals with that. It's like, if we do this for this client,
the
can
custom
pay
out
for,
of the and
then all of a sudden you just get distracted.
Right.
Did you have any of that?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. We pissed off our customers on a routine basis.
Right. Because it's hard to say no, right? I mean, you have large enterprise clients, and there's revenue in front of you, so there's a level of discipline.
Multi-million-dollar checks. They're from these massive brands. They're very impressive executives who are making these requests. So, like, coming up with clever ways to kind of sidestep that is part of the CEO's job.
I'm starting to formulate my thoughts on his superpowers, but we got to continue.
Bill does. You already have it. You want to just take a couple minutes and formulate it, or you want we'll keep
No, we'll keep going.
So now Twitter comes along. How much did you guys get acquired for? What year was that? And
why? Why did Twitter?
What were they looking for?
Knocking.
Yeah, so it was 2015. The conversation started, I think, February of that year, and we got acquired for. I think if you add it all up, including consideration, it was around $600 million. And the precise why that Twitter wanted us was twofold. One is part of our technology included this thing that we called the identity network, and that was the ability to understand people across devices in a very privacy compliant way. And Twitter lacked a lot of those basic building blocks of identity in a way that they were sort of far behind Facebook and the rest of the folks. So
you started building kind of user graphs and identity maybe before LiveRamp, or at the same time, or
Yeah, maybe before the second instantiation of LiveRamp.
Wow.
Yeah. And ours was all proprietary, so it was like
Wow.
on behalf of each retailer.
And you didn't. So identity wasn't the business; it
Right.
was just a part of.
It was just like
the
Seemed
solution.
to be a very
fundamental
valuable
building
asset,
block.
right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
The second reason was because we had this incredible direct response business,
Yeah.
and Twitter lacked direct response.
They were a brand, right? When Bain came in, it was, or
Yeah.
even at that time, it was.
Yeah. Even at that time.
it was brand. It
Yeah.
was brands and going after CMOs, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And so the entire vision was this sort of, we called it the revenue cube. And so Twitter has like 3 axes in which it can make money. There's brand and direct response, obviously. And then there is the on-property ads, and then there's the network, right? So in Google's parlance, it would be Adwords and Adsense. But Twitter also has the logged in and the logged out audiences, right? So there's a lot of people that use Twitter in a logged out state. They haven't
Don't know who
signed
they
up
are.
or
Right.
just aren't logged in at that moment. And when you look at that 3-vector cube,
Yep.
it just becomes massive in terms of its revenue potential. And so we were a big portion of what was going to be that product roadmap.
Incredible.
At the time, what did they was promoted tweets a thing then? Like, did
Yeah.
they have the? Okay, it
Yep.
was right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you come in, your team obviously gets. I imagine a large part of your team gets integrated.
Everybody.
Everyone gets
Yep,
integrated, which is
100%.
huge.
So you're fully integrated, or were you like a separate kind of business unit? At
like
some
a, like a MoPub that was kind of operating separately.
No, you know, what's funny is, so TellApart, we had this incredible culture, this incredible team. We just like, everybody loved working at this company. We had this great office in Burlingame. We did all these fun events. But as soon as the transaction happened, I basically told the Twitter management team, I was like, look, we have to become one company as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So we're giving up our office. We're moving directly into headquarters. It's fine if you want to keep us, on the side for 3 months while we kind of ease our way in.
Yep.
But like as quickly as possible, I want there to be no difference between a TellApart employee and a Twitter employee.
That's incredible. So I actually fundamentally believe most M&A is not successful because people wait too long to integrate and not become one culture. But like what kind of experience gave you that
Same
kind
question.
of insight or like confidence to tell Twitter that? Particularly like as a founder, you could become so emotional about your baby that like you were just like, hey, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was. I certainly saw my fair share of failed acquisitions at Google, because we did several of those, and failed in the sense that they didn't ever fully integrate, right? But for me, so you asked the question, why sell, right? Like we were doing fantastically well, we were super profitable, we had all this money in the bank, why sell? And for me, the thing that really kicked me over the line was this idea that the combination of the two companies would set my people up on a larger stage, right? And so I had these incredible mid-level managers who were running good small teams, right? Teams of 5, 6, 10 people. And I knew that they would be capable of so much more, but we weren't growing at a rate employee-wise to give them that opportunity. And suddenly when we got integrated into Twitter, and it was a little bit of a time where the stock was coming down from its highs, and some people were fully vested. And so, frankly, there were a lot of battlefield promotions that were happening. But I was able to take all of my best lieutenants and slot them into much larger leadership roles at a company that just was much larger in the world.
And and Twitter kind of faltered a little bit before they kind of got their shit together.
Oh yeah. I had to lead 2 layoffs, right? Within 6 months of being there, right? But
at that point, you were like, fuck, I wish I was just back in my old office having teleparties.
You can't A/B test life, right? You got one shot at this thing.
By the way, can we put that on the bottom of the screen? You can't A/B life.
A/B life, right?
Yeah.
Can't A/B life?
By the
way, I'm going to plagiarize that. I'm just giving you the heads up.
Please.
Back to the M&A comment. It feels like the thing that's always lacking in the conversation is the people element. Right, you buy EBIT, you buy revenue, you buy product, you buy team. That all makes perfect sense. But what has historically lacked is sort of that importance of the integration. Okay, so now you're within Twitter. Talk to us about your specific role. What were you doing there? VP of product, if I remember.
So when Jack came back as CEO, we sat down. He said, look, there's many different ways you can run a company. Most companies in the Valley are functionally aligned, right? So all of engineering reports to engineering, all of product reports to product. But at Square, he runs them more in generally managed business units. And so he said he wanted to try that with Twitter. And so on the product side, for the first time ever, we broke it into 2 parts. Wow. And he took the consumer side, and I ended up taking the business side. So anything that touched businesses, whether it was the customer support aspect of people that...
So you ran basically B2B at Twitter?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. Advertising and anything that touched businesses, and then also like our data licensing business.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how long did you stay at Twitter now that you're this successful entrepreneur, but passionate about making sure your people are successful and set up?
Yeah.
I can't imagine you stayed very long, but how long did you stay?
2 years.
2 years. I think that's noble.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. And honestly, I would have stayed a lot longer. Like I was happy there. We were starting to show a lot of the signs of success of 2 years worth of investment and tough times. But that's when Greylock raised Fund 15. And what's funny is I had kicked around the idea of venture capital in this sort of like one day sense in the back of my mind.
Yep.
But it never, like the timing never felt totally right. And then James Slavitt, who's our managing partner, who sat on my board for all of those years, came to me and he said, "Hey, we're going to raise this new fund. We have a slot for a new GP. We'd like you to consider it. We'd like to consider you." And I just thought about it. I was like, you know what? Like, I really do want to give this a shot. And honestly, totally honestly, I was so burned out on operating.
Yeah.
I mean, I was PTSD level.
You were tired
of burnout. Yeah. And so I wanted to try something that was very, very different than anything I'd done before.
Was there an element too of sort of your ability to, give back and work with founders and just learn a new trade as it relates to investing? Meaning you've done all these different things. You probably had a lot to give back.
Yeah.
Do you think about it that way?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, so Andy Ratcliffe, who's a friend of mine, who is one of the founders of Benchmark. So as I was going through this decision, do I want to be a venture capitalist? I called him up. I said, "Hey, I've got this offer with Greylock." And Andy, even though he's a founder of Benchmark, he now runs Wealthfront, so he's an entrepreneur himself.
Yep.
So he gets both sides of the coin. And when he started Benchmark, he based the firm on the foundation, the founding principles of Greylock. And so there's a lot of connectivity between the two, so I knew he'd have a really informed point of view. So I call him up and he said, "Well, what interests you about this job?" And I said just exactly what you highlighted, which is I had an amazing run with my board and my venture capitalists, and like they added so much value, and I just like in this next chapter of my career, I'd like to be able to leverage that and help other entrepreneurs succeed.
Right.
Yep.
He pauses for a second. He says, "That's not the job."
By the way, that's the job of
That's great.
an operating partner or somebody who joins boards.
You must make a return for our LPs. Right.
He's like, "That's not the job.
Right. That's
the
awesome.
job is picking the best companies."
That's awesome.
Yes.
If that gets you excited,
right,
then become a venture capitalist.
That's great.
Because once you've made those choices, then you can help the entrepreneurs.
What's crazy, Bill, is so Andy, that was his second call. His first call was to me in regards to this monumental decision.
Yes, of course.
It went right into voicemail.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking at text that week. I was probably, Burning Man or something. But I'm glad that Andy was available for this.
Yeah,
incredible advice.
I'm still kind of
so how long have you been? How long you've been? It's funny. Most people don't just jump from entrepreneur to GP, right? Normally they do like an entrepreneur in residence. They become an operating partner,
venture partner,
like
something.
venture partner. So how long have you now been a partner at a VC firm, like at Greycroft?
Greylock.
Greylock, sorry.
The other Grey. 2 years. A little over 2 years.
And how's it going? Like, are you meant to do this?
I don't know yet. And what's funny is, so I talked to another ex-venture capitalist, Anil Bushri, who was at Greylock for a long time, just absolutely 10x investor, who's now CEO of Workday. And so I talked to him about this trade-off of operator versus investor, and he said, "Here's the deal. The job is so weird and so different than anything you've ever done."
Yeah.
He's like, think of it in this timeline: 3, 5, and 7 to 10. So don't even try and answer the question, do you like this job, for 3 years? Because it takes you a while to like just
to adjust,
sort it out. And like everything in life, we like things that we're good at. And so he said, 3 years, don't even try and answer that question. 5 years, you're going to have some sense if you're trending in the right direction, right? And so
enjoy it. You belong there.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. And you're starting to get good. And years 7 through 10, you start to get actual cash on cash returns, and that's when you understand, are you actually good?
I've never thought about this before, but it just popped in my head. It's kind of like a college coach, where for the first few years, it's not your recruited class, right? You inherit a bunch of companies that partners had already placed bets on. So you don't really see your companies grow and even materialize or actually monetize for that 3 to 5 year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where like you're now picking companies. It's you're finding them, you're nurturing them, you're funding them.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
And those companies take time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, TellApart from start to exit was 7.5 years, right? And there were a lot of dark moments along the way.
Josh, maybe 1 or 2 companies that you've invested in that you're excited about, and then I have a question around lasers. So
yeah, okay. Yes, the 2 most recent deals that I can talk about are, one is called PayJoy and one's called Ribbon Home. So I led the Series B in each of those companies, which is rare for us. We tend to be an early stage firm, and then we tend to do big growth checks once things are really humming.
How big is Fund 15?
Billion.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Just $1 billion.
Just $1 billion. So Ribbon, based here in New York, great software company, basically helping people get into the homes that they're trying to buy by creating a workflow and bridge financing product that allows them to find a home, get basically underwritten to buy that home. Ribbon buys the home for them.
Wow.
And then it starts a clock that allows them to sell their current house and then move into this new house without any.
I wish this existed like 25 years ago.
So, Josh, if I'm here again, this is solving that classic pain point of the average kind of household where they want to get into a new home, they have to sell. Where are you going to live in between that? Do you have the capital to put down? Do you have the equity? Interesting. So you need a lot of money to float this. Float this business, right?
Yeah. Okay. So part of that comes by way of equity, and a lot comes by way of the debt markets.
Very cool.
As well.
Is that considered what category is that?
Fintech.
It's fintech. Yeah. Okay.
That's what fintech and real estate.
We're running down on time. One last question, not about specific companies, but about your philosophy of finding and nurturing and figuring out the companies you're going to place bets on.
Yeah.
Do you have it?
I haven't perfected it yet. Here's what I've learned about venture capital, as near as I can tell. The best venture capitalists have one thing in common: luck. And the more open you can be to like just holding your arms open, wide open, and seeing what the universe is handing you, and then like really trying to stay tuned into what is going on, why the entrepreneurs that you're really connecting with, like, I think it sounds a little foofy, but I think if you go with this too thesis driven, if you put together your spreadsheet and you dump all the numbers in, you're going to miss like those rare, awesome opportunities. Because especially at the early stages, they just look weird. Right? So
I would not call it luck. I would call it calculated risk taking.
I would call it luck.
All right, it's a story for part 2.
Josh, we have to talk about your other passion I was telling Bill about before we started the show. So you like lasers,
Love
you like
lasers.
music.
Love music.
Just talk to us a little bit about this venture, hobby, combination of both.
Side hustle.
That's
what
exactly what I told Bill.
Everyone's got a side hustle.
All right, what is the side hustle?
The side hustle is lasers. So let's see. This is about 2.5 years ago now. I was going through a separation and I'm divorced now, and I used music as just like this combination of catharsis and motivation, and I love electronic dance music, and I drifted away from the scene.
Bill, that's called EDM. M.
Yeah.
Thank you.
EDM. And so I got back into it, and there was one DJ in particular whose music just got me through a lot of hard times. His name's Gareth Emery. And so I started following him on Twitter, and then he was tweeting about this kid that he found that was like the best laser programmer that he had ever seen in his career.
Wow.
And he had hired this kid who was 22 at the time, and they decided to do a show that was dedicated to the lasers, even more than it was focused on Gareth and his DJ set. And they were going to do it here in New York at Terminal 5. And so I bought a bunch of tickets, sort of sight unseen. And I came out for the show, and on the way, I basically DM'd those guys, and I was like, look, I have a sense this is going to kill it. Like, I just love the concept, and I want to talk to you about maybe bringing this to San Francisco. I know it's supposed to be a one-time only show, but I'm sure we can work something out. And so I went and I did sound check with them, and then I saw the show. It was mind-blowing, and it was only, I don't know, maybe 8 lasers. And so at the after party, I basically talked to them. I said, like, no, I want to bring this to San Francisco. And 2 weeks later, they flew out, toured Bill Graham. And so it was like the 3 of us walking around Bill Graham. It's 8,500 person venue, right? So it's a big goal to take on. And then 2 weeks after that, Anthony, who's the laser programmer, who's 24 now, moved in with me.
24.
Oh my gosh.
We brought a bunch of lasers into my living room, and we started programming. And the end result is this show called Laserface. And the biggest show we've done was at EDC. I would say that's probably 60,000 people.
Wow.
The most recent show is in Ibiza for closing week, for Trance Week. And we have a show coming up at the Armory on October 26th in Minnesota, actually, which is where Anthony's from. It's just been awesome to be part of this thing, and it's mind blowing. It's more lasers.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to surprise everyone here. Chris Kuroda. Do you know the name?
No.
So I actually don't talk about this professionally, but I'm a huge Fish fan.
Okay.
And Fish for 30 years has said that the fifth member of their band is their laser guy.
Oh, cool.
Really?
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
And if you have a chance, I don't know if you're into Fish at all, but if you're into lasers, go to a Fish show.
Okay.
Because this guy is incredible.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Super incredible.
And
that's awesome.
And Bill, I'll make sure you get you got to get Josh on his IG account after one of these things. It's literally the most even from watching from my phone, which I'm going to come to one of these things with you. The most enjoyable, and like you even get a sense of the power of these lasers combined with the music. I know we've talked about it, but like it just looks mind blowing. I just think it's really, some people ride horses and other people play golf, but you know we're creating laser magic.
Well, it also talks to the fact that everyone needs. I think everyone successful people all have side hustles, right?
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you need to find your passion, and sometimes that's in work, and if it's your passion is outside of work and you can manage and balance those, I think people holistically are actually much more happier.
So Josh,
fulfilled.
We're gonna wrap. So this is an incredible story, like such an impressive and cool story. Even though we know each other,
and obviously we could have gone on for hours.
But we can't. I personally cannot take success this long. Like I don't know who the next guest is.
No.
But I need to feel better about myself.
Yeah.
Quickly.
You know what's so funny is that, when Chris and I started this podcast, we were like, hey, we're, kind of successful guys. And like, I do these podcasts and I get depressed at how.
We need to start, we'll start branding, we'll start getting sponsors of like liquor companies and vodka. We can drink our sorrows. But like, Josh, we know each other personally, but so amazing to hear the in-depth story, so impressive. I know our viewers and watchers or listeners are going to get so much out of this. So thanks for sharing that. And follow, if he accepts your invite, follow Josh McFarland on Instagram if he's on one of these tour laser shows. So Bill, without further ado, the summary of, because the show's called Superpowers.
Yes.
And let's stitch it together.
So this is the first time, I believe, Josh and I are first meeting, other than maybe in a meeting or something, maybe a Twitter meeting. So I'm kind of hearing a lot of this for the first time, meeting you really for the first time. And all I kept thinking about as you're talking is even the words you choose and how you went about your career, there's just a discipline Like, you know, not, you know, and it's not like a stated discipline. I think there's just a discipline to how you go about your life and your decision making. And so I you know, I actually think his superpower is around product discipline, right? And, you know, and we probably can get into a couple of the companies, you know, in the last 2 years that you've chosen to invest in, and if we dissect that, you'll find a level of discipline, like, and that's what I can come up with. But I'm interested.
No, Bill, I actually, once again, you do a credible job summarizing superpowers. I just think there's a high degree of thoughtfulness through your entire career that seems to be probably more calculated than most. Maybe there's been a little bit of luck here and there, but I don't know, based on that pedigree and that background.
Although people who say people at this level of success who say luck,
right?
It's like, come on.
I know.
You know,
so I agree. I agree with the discipline piece, but I do think your superpower, combined with Bill's thoughts, is very much the gift of understanding the product side that's kind of gotten you to where you are, especially in this trade, in this industry, is your superpower. I mean, being a product-centric mind, and I'm a commercial guy. You know, I don't code. I'm not a product person. This is as far as I've gotten, which isn't. But so I think your product mindset combined with this industry has taken you, you know, to great places.
Can we agree? It's product discipline.
Okay, we can.
Can we agree on it? What do you think about that?
I like that.
You like that?
Yeah, that works.
All right.
Cool.
Pithy.
So we're out. Josh, thanks for coming, man.
Gentlemen.
And thanks
from
for another
coal
episode
to
of
caviar, from prioritizing
to venture.
roadmaps to venture. There's a level of product discipline that we've never seen before here on Superpowers.
Josh McFarland,
so
we're
good.
out. Thanks for watching.
Superpowers.